Kinsaki Pass, right on the border of the Unabara domain. A group of travelers pauses at the mountain border, confirming they've reached the right spot. They've finally reached their destination, tucked deep within the rugged peaks. It's a secluded place for a dojo. Leading them is Nayoshi Washizu, a young man on a mission to find the absolute strongest swordsman alive. This is where he expects to find his man. He's cutting it close on time, but he's relieved to have arrived before the window of opportunity closes. There's only one thing left for him to do: put the legend's skills to the ultimate test. He's searching for Jinsuke Kirigain, the infamous warrior known across the land as the Slayer of 1,000. Jinsuke is a ghost of a man who appeared, slaughtered 1,000 fighters in just a few years, and then vanished without a trace. Everyone wants to know where his style, the Agam style, went. Nayoshi can't help but wonder if the man actually lives up to the terrifying reputation that precedes him. He's not alone, though. He's brought along the Hyuga brothers, Masato and Kosaburo. They don't care about the dojo's humble appearance. They only care about how lethal the swordplay is. Masato and Kosaburo are mercenaries for hire. Kosaburo is already dreaming about the 100 ryo they were promised for this job. Nayoshi's clearly annoyed by their attitude. He tells them to drop the nicknames and show some respect. He reminds the brothers that their only job's to gauge exactly how strong this legendary slayer really is. They'll get paid once the work is done. The group approaches the dojo gates. The atmosphere is quiet, almost too quiet for a place housing such a legend. Masato tells Nayoshi to hang back. He's ready to head in and see what they're dealing with. But when they enter, they don't find a legendary warrior. They just find a lone person sitting on a rock casually snacking. Nayoshi is stunned. He was expecting a monster of a man, not, well, this. It's just a kid. Nayoshi can't wrap his head around the idea that an Agam-style swordsman could be this young. The boy introduces himself as Gama. He even pulls out a wooden sword specially made for him as proof of his training. Gama slams his wooden sword into the ground with a loud thud, cutting off the conversation. He's not letting him pass that easily. If they want to get through the gate, they're going to have to prove their own skills to him first. He looks them over with a calm intensity, telling them there's no need to be worried. Kosaburo thinks the kid is just talking big. He offers to spar with him, and says he'll only use his bare hands so he doesn't hurt the brat. Masato just laughs it off, telling his brother to go ahead and handle the kid. Nayoshi watches, sensing things are about to get complicated. Kosaburo steps forward, unimpressed. Nayoshi keeps a close eye on the exchange. Gama is visibly annoyed that they keep underestimating him. He clarifies that he's 14, not some little kid. Kosaburo keeps the taunts coming, insisting that his pride as a swordsman would never allow him to draw a real blade against the child. He lunges at Gama, thinking this will be a quick lesson for the boy. Nayoshi is genuinely worried the kid is about to get hurt. Gama reaches for his sword. To Nayoshi, it looks like a desperate, rash move that's going to end badly. In a blur of motion, Gama moves. It's too fast for the naked eye to track. Suddenly, the fight is over. Kosaburo is sent flying backward, gasping for air. Gama stands over him, completely unfazed. He's already disarmed the mercenary and taken his sword. He points out that he landed a solid hit right in solar plexus. Kosaburo is completely out of commission, his eyes rolling back in his head. Nayoshi is in shock. He can't believe the boy managed to dodge and counter from such close range. Gama just offers some cold advice. If you're going to draw, you better be lightning fast. Masato realizes his brother was just taken down by a teenager. He's starting to take this kid seriously. Nayoshi sees it too. This kid isn't just some student. He's something else entirely. Masato is actually starting to look interested. Gama decides they've talked enough out here and invites them inside the dojo to finish their business. Inside, they're met by Senka, the daughter of the previous head of the school. She's quick to apologize for Gama's rough behavior. She gives them a welcoming smile and assures them that their injured companion is already being looked after in another room. Gama can't help himself and makes a snide comment about her makeup. Senka's polite mask slips instantly as she gets annoyed. Eventually, they all settle down to talk properly. Senka asks why they've really come to their remote dojo if they aren't just guests. Nayoshi gets straight to the point. They've come to challenge the current head of the Agam style, Lord Jinsuke Kirigain. The mention of Jinsuke's name sends a shock through the room. Senka and Gama both look like they've seen a ghost. Senka drops the bomb. If they're looking for Jinsuke Kirigain, they're out of luck. He's simply not here. She goes on to explain that he hasn't been seen in years. Not even the people living at the dojo know where he's gone. Nayoshi is stunned. He came all this way for nothing. Senka adds that Gama is currently the only student left at the dojo. Masato and Kosaburo find the whole situation hilarious. A legendary school with only one kid? They think they've completely wasted their time. Masato lets out a mocking laugh. To him, the sight of a legendary school reduced to this is just pathetic. He's done. He calls Gama an abandoned brat and dismisses his training as make-believe, ready to leave while still expecting to get paid. As the group turns to go, Gama sits calmly on the floor. Masato doesn't even want to look back at him. Gama speaks up, unfazed by the insults. He looks right at Masato and notes that he seems a lot tougher than his brother. He starts cracking his knuckles with a chilling grin. He asks Masato if he's got what it takes to finish what his brother couldn't. Gama mocks him again, and you can see Masato's patience finally snapping. He's not used to being talked down by a kid. Nayoshi is torn. Part of him wants to stop the fight, but another part is curious. He can feel that Gama has some seriously hidden depths. Masato finally loses it. He tells Gama to draw his wooden sword, warning him that he won't be leaving the room alive. To show off his raw power, Masato grips a thick wooden beam and snaps in half using nothing but his thumb. He tells Gama point blank that he's on a completely different level than his younger brother. Even Senka is taken back by that kind of strength. He pulls his weapon, ready to end this. He's looking forward to seeing what this kid can actually do. Gama isn't impressed. He just wonders how that kind of clobbering strength is supposed to actually help him in a real sword fight. That's the last straw. Masato calls him a little runt and promises he'll be nothing but a smear on the ground when he's finished. Gama just gives him a confident smirk. He's not intimidated at all. The two square off in the middle of the dojo. Masato takes a wide, heavy stance, ready to crush anything in his path. Gama adopts a strange, incredibly low stance. Masato tells him to make his move. In a flash, Gama dashes forward. Naoshi and Senko watch with their hearts in their throats as the battle truly begins. Their weapons collide with a violent crack. The speed of the engagement is almost too much to follow. It looks like Masato managed to land a heavy blow. The force behind the strike is immense. Masato wears a confident grin, thinking he's caught the kid. Gama's expression stays intensely focused. Masato manages to get firm grip on Gama's wooden sword, stopping his momentum cold. He laughs, telling Gama that while he might have beaten Kosaburo, he's not going to get away with the same tricks twice. Gama realizes he's in a bad spot. It was way too risky to just rush in against someone with this much power. Masato thinks the fight is already over. He's got the upper hand, and he knows it. He winds up for a massive finishing move. Gama looks like he's caught in the headlights. With a sickening whack, Masato's strike connects. Gama is sent flying across the room. The impact is so hard it sends Gama crashing straight through the wooden wall of the dojo. Naoshi and Senka look on in horror. They're sure that was a fatal blow. Gama lies motionless on the ground outside. Naoshi thinks the kid has actually been killed. Masato explains what happened. He landed a brutal kick that sent Gama flying. Even for a warrior, that's a lot of damage. He turns his back, thinking he's finished the job. He calls the whole thing a waste of time. But then, a voice comes from a hole in the wall. Gama is laughing. He says it's all just dojo swordplay in the end. Naoshi is stunned as Gama slowly starts to get back on his feet. The kid is tougher than anyone thought. Masato turns back, his grin fading into a look of pure surprise. He can't believe Gama is still talking. Gama wipes the blood from his chin. He tells Masato that if he wants to bash his head open, he's going to have to do a lot better than that. He admits that even though he diffused some of the power, that kick still packed a hell of a wallop. He looks excited. Naoshi is breaking into a cold sweat just watching this. Sega tells him he doesn't need to worry about Gama. She explains that this dojo is basically the front door to the Unabara domain. Every few days, martial artists from all over come here to test their luck. Sega mentions that Gama has a very specific reason for his intense training, which catches Naoshi off guard. She reveals a startling fact. Gama has single-handedly defeated every warrior who challenged the dojo for the last 5 years, ever since he was only 9 years old. Senka explains that Gama's true purpose is to surpass his father, the man known as the strongest of them all. Naoshi is left reeling from the revelation. Back in the fight, Gama wipes the blood from his mouth with a smirk. He makes a bold declaration. He's going to take Masato's life in just 3 hits. The sheer confidence of the boy leaves Naoshi speechless, while Masato can only stare in disbelief at the kid's arrogance. Gama shifts his weight, dropping into a deep, focused stance. He tells Masato it's time for him to experience the true Agam style firsthand. He ignites a sudden burst of speed, unleashing the Agam style 5 swords. First sword, known as the lightning strike. Gama closes the distance in a blur of motion. Masato, frozen by the sudden shift in momentum, can barely process the boy's peculiar low-to-the-ground approach. Masato tries to steel himself, convinced he can still crush the boy if he could just land one solid blow before the kid reaches him. Gama's foot bites into floorboards as he lunges forward with explosive power, his movement almost too fast for the eye to follow. Masato brings his wooden sword down in a desperate overhead strike, but he's already too late to catch the blur that is Gama. Masato's eyes widen as his target simply disappears from his field of vision. Gama has completely vanished from the path of the strike. Naoshi can only watch in absolute silence, his heart racing as he tries to keep track of the boy's insane movements. A heavy slam echoes through the dojo as Gama lands his first blow, the wooden sword connecting with a sickening crunch. "One," he shouts. Naoshi is stunned. He can't understand how a mere boy could breach a veteran warrior's defense so effortlessly. Gama doesn't slow down for a second, his body twisting as he prepares to unleash a flurry of subsequent strikes. He drives another powerful hit home, shouting out his count, 2, as Masato reels back from the impact. The second strike lands with devastating force right against Masato's ribs, the sound of splintering wood and bone filling the air. Masato screams in agony, his face contorted as he's battered by the boy's incredible speed. Gama is already spinning into his final move. With a final, thunderous blow, Gama shouts 3 as he sends Masato flying across the room, blood spraying from the man's mouth. The room goes quiet as Masato lies broken on the floor. Naoshi is deeply impressed, realizing Gama Kyurigane is on a completely different level of skill. Gama lets out a breath, admitting that it's been a long time since he's felt this kind of focus. Naoshi steps forward, satisfied that he's seen more than enough. A smile touches Naoshi's lips. He's found what he was looking for, and he's ready to bet his entire future on this boy's potential. Senka is still trying to process the sudden victory. Naoshi playfully asks Gama why he feels the need to take a beating before he starts fighting seriously. Suddenly, an eccentric-looking old man with a small turtle perched on his bald head wanders into the room, wondering aloud if they have guests. The man introduces himself as Kamadembo Oizumi, sheepishly claiming to be nothing more than a lowly, retired old man. While Masato groans in pain in the corner, Gama dismisses the old man as a nosy old fart, clearly annoyed by the interruption. Naoshi is struck with another wave of shock when he realizes this quirky old man was the previous head of the Agam style, and a master of Jinsu Kirigan himself. Kamadembo casually munches on some dango, brushing off his past glory as ancient history. He points out that someone should probably tend to the defeated Masato. The old man pulls out a letter, looking at Naoshi with a sudden spark of recognition. He asks if he is the child of a woman named Madame Yukio. Kamadembo reveals that he knew Nayoshi's mother well, remembering her as a woman who was as strong-willed as she was beautiful. Seeing no point in further secrecy, Naoshi reveals his true identity. He is Naoshi Washizu, the 28th son of the Lord of the Onabara domain. The revelation that they are hosting royalty leaves Gama and Senka completely jaw-dropped, though Kamadembo remains mostly amused. Naoshi explains the reason for his journey. He's been searching for elite martial artists to represent him in the upcoming Grand Tournament of Onabara. He recounts the events at his father's castle a year ago, where a monumental decision was made that would change the fate of the domain. The aging Lord of Onabara declared that his successor would not be chosen by bloodline, but by a grand demonstration of the world's most powerful martial arts. Lord Naomeso Washizu addressed the sea of warriors and officials, sharing his dream of gathering all the world's greatest fighters under one roof. He welcomed all forms of combat, from traditional swordplay to exotic spear techniques and secretive ninjutsu styles. The Lord's goal is singular and ambitious. He wants to witness the ultimate battle and discover the most powerful martial art in existence. He looked out over the assembled elite, challenging them to prove which of their styles is truly the strongest under the sun. Already, the Onabara domain has no shortage of arts claimed to be the strongest under the sun. As the warriors prepare to depart, the Lord officially christened the impending conflict as the Grand Tournament of Onabara. The battle for supremacy has begun. With his back to the assembly, the Lord announces that the battle will begin in exactly 1 year. The one who discovers the most powerful arts will take his place. Naoshi notes that time is of the essence. There is only 1 month remaining until the Grand Tournament begins. He is refreshingly blunt, warning that the Agam style will undoubtedly face a grueling and bloody series of battles with only Gama to represent it. Stealing his gaze, Naoshi makes a formal request. He wants Gama to serve as his blade and help him conquer the den of demons that is the Onabara domain. He admits that while they might have different final destinations, their immediate goals are perfectly aligned, making them ideal partners for this journey. Kamadembo Oizumi strokes his white beard thoughtfully, expressing his deep concern. He believes Onabara is a den of monsters and that Gama simply lacks the experience to survive it. To everyone's shock, Gama speaks up without hesitation. He accepts the offer, declaring that he will join Naoshi as his vassal. With a confident and slightly mischievous grin, Gama admits that taking on all the fighters of Onabara sounds like the perfect stage to prove the worth of the Agam style. Naoshi is left momentarily speechless by the boy's sudden and enthusiastic resolve. Kamadembo is outraged, shouting that Gama is being reckless and will surely die a meaningless dog's death if he goes alone. Gama calmly retorts that there's no such thing as a dog's death in true combat. Ignoring the old man's frantic protests, Gama prepares to leave. He declares that he has no intention of giving up, even if the path ahead costs him his very life. Determination burns in Gama's eyes. He is eager to test his limits and see how he measures up against the strongest opponents the domain has to offer. As Gama and Naoshi set off together, the boy vows that the name of Gama Kirigain and the Agam style will soon be known as the most powerful force in all of Onabara. Welcome to Onabara's castle town, a place where a casual stroll can turn into a funeral in seconds. Gama Kirigain isn't here for the sights, though. He's just looking for a good snack while he hunts for the strongest fighters. He's got his sights set on the top spot in this den of demons. Nearby, a crowd gathers to watch a duel featuring a notoriously drunk master named Baimaki. Bain is mid-gulp when his opponent finally works up the nerve to make a move. Being wasted doesn't slow him down at all. He draws and slashes in one clean blur. The fight is over before it even starts, leaving Bain laughing while his opponent hits the dirt. A shopkeeper tries to warn Gama that this isn't a playground for kids. Everyone is hyping up drunk Bain like he's some kind of unstoppable force. Ima Yakushiji explains that Onabara is the only place built to contain monsters like him. But the monster isn't just a story. He's standing right behind them. Bain looms over them with his sake jug, giving off a terrifyingly chill vibe for a guy who just killed someone. He leans in, hiccuping, and gets right in Gama's face. The swordsman tells the kid to run home to Mama before things get dangerous. The teenager just pinches his nose and tells the guy he reeks of cheap booze. The playful drunk act vanishes instantly as Bain's expression turns ice cold. He gives one last warning before he decides to teach the rat a lesson. Bain strikes with a blinding whiz of a blade that Gama barely manages to sidestep. The boy is left wide-eyed with blood gushing from his nose, a graze from a move he didn't even see. The attacker just grins, clearly satisfied with himself. He laughs it off, repeating that children have no business being in a place like this. Gama ignores the taunts, his eyes locked onto a naginata sitting nearby. He grabs a wooden stick from the shop, telling the owner he needs to borrow it for a second. Ein is still internally buzzing over how a kid managed to dodge his best strike. He goes back to his jug, completely dismissing the brat as a fluke. Suddenly, the kid lets out a massive swing that sends wood chips flying right past the master's face. Ein's eyes go wide. The speed behind that swing was on a whole different level. He can't believe it. The boy actually managed to graze him back with a piece of scrap wood. Gama casually wipes the blood off his face and mentions that the hip trick for extra reach is pretty clever. They stand in dead silence, the entire atmosphere in the street having completely shifted. He finally gives his name, Gama Hiragain, and tells the drone to show him what else he's got. Before things can escalate further, Naoshi Washizu comes running in, wheezing and yelling at him for wandering off. Naoshi is losing his mind because they were supposed to be at the castle ages ago. The boy just shrugs it off, acting like he was just having a lively chat with a new friend. As they walk away, his mind is still on the encounter, disappointed he didn't get to see more of that naginata technique. They finally make it to the castle, where the prince officially introduces his new representative for the Agum style. While the lords talk politics, Gama is in the back fidgeting like he's sitting on a bed of nails. Once they're out, he's blown away by how massive and spotless the place is. Naoshi stops to hand over some medicine to a maid for his veteran mother. And asked why he isn't visiting her himself, he just looks away in silence. He admits that his mother actually hates him, which catches the swordsman off guard. The heavy moment is cut short when they run into Neo Sada Washizu, and his face says he isn't here for a friendly reunion. Neo Sada Washizu strolls up, oozing arrogance, and making it clear he doesn't think much of his brother's claim to the lordship. He's the 10th son of the Washizu clan, and he doesn't hesitate to throw Nayoshi's low-born roots in his face with a nasty smirk. Neo Sada tells him to know his place, promising that a maggot like him will never truly be one of them. As the jerk walks away, Naoshi is left seething while Gama just watches the drama unfold. The kid asks who that tool was, and the prince tells him to just ignore him and move on. Naoshi admits it's only been a year since he was even acknowledged by his brothers. He tells his fighter that despite his mother's low birth, he's still his father's son and has every right to the throne. In fact, he's lucky to even be alive right now. Under normal rules, he'd have been beheaded for his recent stunt. But for him, death is way better than living a life where his brothers can just walk all over him. Living in despair isn't a life he's willing to accept anymore. He turns to the teenager, looking for some kind of reassurance or reason to hope. Our boy doesn't skip a beat. He knows he's the greatest, and he's ready to prove it to the whole land. Naoshi officially puts his entire future in Gama's hands, willing to see how far they can go together. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the castle, the master of spies, Nachi, briefs the Lord of Unabera about the upcoming tournament. He drops a bombshell. Nayoshi's chosen fighter carries the blood of the legendary swordsman, Jinsu Kirigane. That name gets the Lord's attention immediately. The potential for chaos in the tournament just went through the roof. We jump back 3 months to the 13th Imperial match to see how some of these styles actually stack up. The crowd is skeptical, watching a lone fighter with a naginata, a weapon they dismiss as being for women. But this isn't just any fighter. It's Bayanmaki, ahead of the Tenjin style, and he's already deep into his sake. It's 10 against 1, and the onlookers are eager to see if a single blade can actually hold its own against the group. The opponents are confident, thinking they can just overwhelm him by attacking all at once. They charge in, but Bayan just gives them a cold, focused look before making his move. At long range, that heavy blade is a nightmare, capable of crushing through any defense with ease. If they try to close the gap, he just spins the thing at mid-range to keep them totally off guard. It's a non-stop assault that doesn't give any of them a single chance to breathe. The real secret to the naginata is how versatile it is in the middle of a fight. Once a master gets going, they can handle any range, long, medium, or close quarters. Bayan sweeps through their ranks like he's just taking out the trash. Every single movement is calculated to be a killing blow, whether it's a cut, thrust, or sweep. There's absolutely no escaping the ever-changing rhythm of his attacks. Nachi reflects on how rare it is to find someone who can truly master a weapon like that in this day and age. That man is Bayanmaki, and he's easily one of the most dangerous people in the upcoming tournament. Back in the present, Gama and his sponsor continue their walk under the moonlight. The prince starts feeling a bit guilty, realizing he's putting a kid's life on the line for his own ambition. He tells his fighter he can curse him if he ends up dying in this fight. The boy just looks at him, asking if he's really weird enough to be the next lord. Naoshi tells him that if he chooses a path, he has to have absolute faith in it. Our protagonist just gives a thumbs up and tells him to leave all the hard work to him. Gama is just hanging out when he notices something weird. Maple leaves are falling in the middle of spring. A voice comes out of nowhere, identifying him as the representative of the Agum style. The stranger keeps his hands tucked into his robes and explains he's a messenger for the grand tournament of Unabera. Naoshi is visibly shaken by the guy's demon mask as the messenger starts laying out the tournament rules. He announces that the first round kicks off in 10 days and will last for an entire month. The 31 styles are split into 8 groups, and the goal is to crush every other team in your block by any means necessary. It's a total free-for-all, where only the strongest style from each group moves on to the next round. Naoshi realizes the gravity of the situation. It's an all-out war where numbers and surprise attacks are perfectly legal. Gamma doesn't flinch, simply noting that anything goes from here on out. He's ready to get to work and asks who exactly they have to go through first. The messenger reveals a scroll for Group 6, listing the Nakazumi, Kaisen, and the elite Tenjin style as their rivals. He gives them locations for each group, specifically noting that the Tenjin school has set up in Kaminoik. Just hearing the name, Tenjin, is enough to send Naoshi into a full-blown panic. He thinks they're doomed, but Gamma just asks if these guys are actually any good. Instead of worrying, Gamma decides they're going to take the initiative and attack the Tenjin style first. He's got a confident smirk, saying he knows what he's getting into because he's already seen them in action. Gamma grips his sword and declares it's officially time for war. Meanwhile, at the Saikudo Temple, the Tenjin style is preparing for the start of the tournament. Ai Maki is busy drowning himself in sake, acting like he hasn't got a care in the world. Lord Naosada Washizu tries to get him focused, but Bayan isn't interested in making plans. He finally grabs his massive Baisendo, admitting he's been waiting a long time for a real fight. 9 days pass in a flash, and, as the moon hangs high, the final countdown to the tournament begins. Gamma walks alone through the hills, looking completely locked in as the battle is about to begin. At the Saikudo Temple, the Tenjin style has turned sight into their base for the first round. Inside, Bayan reminds his top students that defeat is not an option if they want to survive. He tells them to quit holding back and show their true abilities to the fullest. Bayan Maki makes a bold claim. By the end of the month, everyone will know his style is the greatest in the land. His elite group, including the instructor Aima Yakushiji and the young Hyoshi, stand ready. Masakio Yukimura is especially hyped, promising to make history with their Naginata style. Then there's the giant, Junisuke Akaboshi. Bayan tells him to go wild and pull no punches in the coming fight. The other students whisper about Junisuke's past, calling him a monster who won't stop until everyone is dead. Bayan scoffs at the idea of samurai spirit, saying this tournament isn't about noble teachings. For him, the only thing that matters is raw, overwhelming strength. He wants the students focused on one thing, proving they're invincible. Naosada is impressed by their bloodlust, though he warns Bayan that it might be dangerous for him to be hanging around. He mentions that his spies found something interesting about the competition. Bayan looks curious as Naosada brings up the Yagam style. When he hears that the representative is just a child, the room erupts in laughter and disbelief. They go over the winning conditions again, confident they'll be the ones standing at the end. Bayan decides they shouldn't wait around for the kid to show up. They'll strike first. As dawn breaks on the 10th day, Junisuke is already losing his patience, ready to kill something. He flings the doors open, eager to spill some blood as the grand tournament finally begins. As the temple doors fly open, Junisuke is blindsided by a casual greeting before Gamma unsheathes his blade in a flash. Before the giant can even process the attack, the boy delivers a blindingly fast strike that drops him right in his tracks. The hallway erupts into chaos as the Tenjin students realize they're under a one-man siege, with everyone scrambling to alert their master. We jump back to 3 days earlier, where Nayoshi's high-stakes gamble is only just beginning to take shape. He knows that the tournament isn't just a duel, it's a war, and he's betting everything on a kid who's already deep behind enemy lines. As the sun sets over the castle town, the time for preparation ends. It's finally begun. Rewinding even further, Kamadembo watches Naoshi, who is consumed by the weight of his mother's illness and his family's disdain. Naoshi slams the floor in frustration, realizing he's powerless to help Gamma as he faces 3 elite styles all on his own. He's desperate for reinforcements, but the old man reminds him that their only hope lies with the one boy already at the front. Meanwhile, 3 days ago, Gamma was as laid back as ever, testing his sword and asking for a 3-day supply of food for his mission. He calmly tells his stunned Naoshi that his strategy is to keep moving and ambush the Tenjin base before they can even make a move. He promises to have the entire group sorted out in no time, acting like he's just going on a routine morning walk. Back in the present, Naoshi can only watch the morning light and pray that the kid actually survives his crazy plan. But at the temple, there's no time for prayers as the reality of the ambush hits the Tenjin students like a hammer. Panic sets in as the students scramble for their weapons, shouting at the top of their lungs that they're under attack. Masakio is in a cold sweat, realizing their strongest fighter, Junisuke, was taken out in a single heart-stopping strike. Aima Yakushiji, the head instructor, takes charge and orders everyone to keep their cool and guard Bayan at all costs. He rushes toward the commotion, stunned that anyone would have the guts to storm their headquarters solo. Gamma ignores the threats, steadying his breath as he prepares the Agam style's second sword technique, Blazing Flame. He swings with such incredible force that the instructor can barely keep up with the blur of lethal steel. There's a deafening BM as the blow connects, the sheer power vibrating through the wooden floor of the temple. Masakio is horrified to find that his Naginata shaft, reinforced with iron, has been sliced clean through light paper. He stares at his ruined weapon in disbelief, realizing that the kid he underestimated has just done the impossible. Gamma, however, is more annoyed that he chipped his blade on a little bit of iron than he is impressed by his own feat. Masakio is forced to back off, realizing he's facing a monster who's way out of his league. Gama sighs, slightly disappointed that his attempt to take out Bayan right from the start didn't quite land. Now he's stuck in a 3-on-1 fight against their top elite, admitting even to himself that this is going to be a tough climb. He suddenly realizes one of them is missing, looking around just in time to see his shadow creeping behind him. The young Hayoshi slides in low and fast, aiming a deadly sweep right at Gama's ankles to take him out. He lets out a wide, long-range sweep, but Gama is already airborne, dodging the blade with practiced ease. Hayoshi is stunned when he feels a weight on his weapon. Gama actually used the moving Naginata shaft as a bridge to close the gap. Using that momentum, Gama spins in midair, coming down with a lethal overhead strike toward the instructor. The instructor is caught completely off guard as the boy closes the distance from above in a split second. A massive clang rings out as the lethal strike is suddenly stopped by a heavy, curved blade. Ayamaki has finally stepped in, his relaxed attitude gone as he eyes the young intruder with new interest. The other students are relieved to see their master in the fight, though they're shocked he even had to lift a finger to defend them. Ayan holds his heavy bicep steady, admitting he's impressed that Gama managed to turn their own attacks against them. He tells his men that the warm-up is over and it's time to show the kid what a real fight looks like. Ayan mocks him one last time, asking if he's ready to face all three of them at once as the real battle finally begins. Ayan tells the kid his lucky streak of surprise attacks just ran out. He's dead certain a sword can't touch a Naginata in fair fight. Gama doesn't seem worried though. He's ready to put that theory to the test. Ayan gives the signal, and the whole squad moves in at once. They launch a triple threat strike, covering him from every possible angle. It's a perfect cage of blades, high, low, and center, with zero room to run. Gama pulls a desperate jump, clearing the low sweep and parrying the high one midair. He slams back down to the floor, having barely escaped the worst of it. He's bleeding from his side, but he's still standing. Bayan's actually impressed the kid made it out. Ayan decides it's time to stop holding back and call for the real deal, the Lotus. His own men think he's crazy. That technique is overkill for a kid who can barely defend himself. But the master isn't listening. He shifts his grip, and things just got a lot more serious. He settles into the Lotus stance, a move meant to end the fight right here. Gama watches closely, noting how Bayan is shifting all his weight for one massive lunge. He knows if he can just parry the first hit and get inside, he might actually have a chance. Here it comes, a low-aim strike. Gama skips over it, but the speed of the follow-up is insane. Bayan's already bringing the pull back around before Gama can even breathe. This is why he's a master. He can swing that massive weapon even when they're practically chest to chest. He catches Gama with a brutal strike to the head, the first flower camellia. Before Gama can recover, a lightning-fast leg sweep sends him spinning. A heavy slam comes crashing down, and Gama barely manages to catch on his blade. The vibration is rattling his bones, and his sword is starting to buckle under the pressure. Bayan isn't slowing down, calling out the second flower, peony. The subordinates jump back into mix, spinning their Naginatas like sauce. They all lunge at once, aiming to turn Gama into a pincushion. A heavy hit knocks Gama's sword away, and he's taking cuts all over his shoulders. Bayan looks like he's ready to deliver the final blow. He winds up the third and final flower, Gardenia. Gama is wide open and swordless, looking like he's completely run out of moves. The strike connects with a massive boom, sending debris flying everywhere. The underlings are already celebrating, thinking they finally put the kid down. But then the dust settles, and Bayan's face just drops. Gama somehow caught that light-speed strike right on the guard of his sword. He pushes himself back up, admitting that Basinto definitely packs a punch. Alright, warm-up's over. Time to see what the Agam style can really do. Bayan's staring him down, and you can see the sweat starting to roll. Meanwhile, the two guys who are helping him are already face down in the dirt. Bayan's actually laughing now, calling Gama a total beast for surviving that. Yakushiji tries to keep things on track, but he can tell his master's checked out a plan. Bayan hasn't felt this fired up in years. He wants to finish this one-on-one. Gama just gives him a cocky smirk and readies his blade. He's more than happy to oblige. Yakushiji reminds his master that if he falls, it's lights out for the entire Tenjin style. He steps forward, refusing to let the master take any more risks. He'll handle the kid himself. He orders Hayoshi and the others to stay sharp and finish the job if he doesn't make it back. Yakushiji is ready to lay everything on the line to keep the school alive. Gama doesn't seem bothered. If anything, he's excited to tear through another expert technique. He draws his blade, challenging the guy to give it his absolute best before he gets crushed. Gama vanishes in a blur of speed, closing the gap before his opponent can even blink. Yakushiji catches the odd angle of the kid's stance. He's leaning forward, primed for a lightning-fast start. The veteran screams and swings with everything he has, determined to protect his master's dream. Flashback to 5 years ago, a much younger Yakushiji picks a fight with Bayan to make a name for himself. He's looking for a shortcut to a fancy position with a lord and thinks the rumored warrior is just a stepping stone. Bayan isn't having it. He just wants to eat his lunch and tells the guy he smells too bad to even bother with. Bayan says he's not wasting his blade on some nobody who's only in it for the money. Yakushiji won't take no for an answer, but he ends up getting a face full of dirt instead. No matter how many times he gets knocked down, He keeps coming back, swearing he's a stronger man. He starts whining that the fight isn't fair because of Bine's reach, so the master just hands him an Adanata. Bine offers to actually train him, figured the guy might at least be a decent punching bag. 2 years of blood and sweat later, and they've turned the Tenjin style into a name that everyone fears. A local lord offers them fortune for their services, and Yakushiji thinks they've finally made it. But Bine isn't interested in comfort. He wants to head straight into the Den of Demons, the unaware domain. Yakushiji can't believe the guy is still looking for a fight when they could be living the high life. Bine gives him a grin and asks if he's ready to help make their style the strongest in the world. Back in the present, Yakushiji shakes off the memory, his focus snapping back to duel. He puts all his weight into a massive swing, aiming to end the beast right here. His eyes are filled with 5 years of shared ambition and the drive to protect what they built. He roars, swinging a heavy pole with enough force to shatter bone. But Gamma is faster, reaching out and snatching the shaft of the weapon right out of the air. A quick counter slash sends blood flying, and Yakushiji realizes the kid's strikes are way heavier than they look. He manages to break Gamma's posture just in time, realizing he'd be dead already if he hadn't. In a desperate move, he pulls a hidden dagger and lunges, catching Gamma completely off guard. The blade sinks deep into Gamma's left arm, and the pain is immediate and blinding. Yakushiji smirks, knowing the swordsman is basically finished once they lose the use of an arm. But before he can follow up, Gamma does something totally insane that leaves everyone stunned. He lunges forward, grabbing Hayoshi before the poor kid even knows what's happening. Yakushiji can't believe it. The guy is actually using one of his own students as a human shield. He screams for Bine to get out of the way as Gamma tosses the kid like a rag doll. The move buys Gamma just enough time to reset his focus, even with his arm hanging dead. Yakushiji is losing it, screaming at the top of his lungs for his men to take the opening. The two clash again, blades ringing out as the fight reaches its breaking point. Dust kicks up everywhere, and Yakushiji realizes he's lost sight of the kid in the chaos. Gamma drops low to the ground, moving beneath the guard like a snake in the grass. He's finally found his opening. Just one more step and he's within lethal range. Gamma charges in, knowing that even though Bine is a beast at a distance, he's just as lethal up close. He decides to bet everything on a super close range strike, closing the gap before Bine can react. Bine's caught off guard by the kid's reckless speed, especially since he thought Gamma's left arm was out of commission. Gamma's eyes are locked on his target, his blade ready to deliver a finishing blow. Yakushiji watches from the sidelines, sweating as he realizes his master might actually be in trouble. Gamma's sword whistles through the air, a blur of motion aimed directly at Bine's throat. Bine barely manages to twist away, but a spray of blood shows that he wasn't fast enough to escape completely. Despite the wound, he keeps his cool, thinking that Gamma's close-range gamble has finally left him wide open. He roars and sweeps his massive blade low, aiming to cut the ground out from under Gamma's feet. Gamma just gives him that signature smirk, ready to unveil the true power of the Agam style. He centers his weight, focusing every ounce of his spirit into a single, devastating technique. In an instant, he executes the third sword of the Agam style, the Void, moving with a speed that defies logic. Bine's massive swing finds nothing but air as Gamma appears behind him like a ghost. The Tenjin warriors can only watch in horror, unable to even track the kid's impossible body movements. Before Bine can even process what happened, he feels the cold bite of steel against the back of his neck. Gamma knows he's at a disadvantage at this distance and needs to find a blind spot. He dives low, slipping right under the reach of the massive blade. Bine is genuinely surprised that the kid managed to close the gap so easily. A huge swing comes down, but Gamma just barely dances out of the way. Bine's partner, Yakushiji, shouts for him to take the shot since Gamma's attack was too shallow. Bine glares, ready to put an end to this with one last strike. He's completely confident that victory belongs to the Tenjin style. Gamma taps into his own secret technique, the Void, first form, Shadow Stitch. He moves like a ghost, vanishing from Bine's line of sight in blur. Before Bine can even blink, Gamma is already standing right behind him. The master's eyes go wide in total shock. He's left wondering how the hell Gamma even got in that close. A clean slash follows through with perfect precision. Gamma stands tall as Bine smirks, finally acknowledging the beast he's fighting. Blood sprays from the deep wound as the fight finally settles. The head of the Tenjin style wobbles for a second before collapsing to the floor. Even with his life fading, Bine says he had the absolute time of his life. Gamma shows a rare bit of respect, admitting he feels the same way about their duel. Bine falls to his knees, his ambition and his life ending right there. He slumps over dead as the room goes quiet. Gamma pays his final respects to the man he just killed and turns to leave. Just like that, the legacy of the Tenjin style is wiped away. A masked observer watches from the rooftops as the Agam style is declared the winner. The news travels fast, reaching Lord Nayoshi back at his quarters. He's stunned to hear that Gamma actually took down the Tenjin style all by himself. Nayoshi clenches his fist in relief, but he's still clearly on edge. He asks if Gamma was hurt, but the messenger doesn't have any specific details yet. Meanwhile, Gamma is wandering through the forest, mostly just complaining about how hungry he is. He winces as his left arm starts throbbing with pain from the previous fight. A voice suddenly calls out from the shadows, telling him he needs to see a doctor. Gama jumps, realizing someone has been following him this whole time. The wind rustles through the trees, but he can't see where the voice came from. He spins around with his hand on his hilt, feeling a presence right behind him. A stranger suddenly appears and rests his hands on Gama's shoulders with a grin. Gama stays on guard, wondering how this guy managed to sneak up on him so easily. The man introduces himself as Shimon Kudo, a collector of information. He explains he's been scouting the Tenjin style for days and didn't expect the kid to take them out. Shimon admits he's actually developed a bit of interest in Gama's potential. He grabs Gama's injured arm to get a closer look at the damage. His assessment isn't good. The arm's so bad it won't be usable for at least a month. Gama is thrown off, asking if the guy is actually a doctor. Shimon doesn't sugarcoat it, telling Gama he should just withdraw from the competition right now. Gama doesn't let the bad news get him down. As long as he has his right arm, he's convinced he can win. He explains that his sword is everything to him, and he's ready to dedicate his entire life to his craft. Shimon is impressed by the kid's resolve, even if it seems a bit over the top. They start walking together, with Shimon giving him some free advice. He warns Gama that he needs to be aware of the remaining enemies that are targeting the Yagam style. Specifically, he mentions two groups, the Kaizen and Nakurazumi styles. Gama is curious, and Shimon tells him that there are some pretty unexpected things about both. First is the Nakurazumi style, which apparently only has one person competing. The issue is the weapon, their school of archery known for using a mad bow. Gama is surprised to hear about Archer, wondering how he's even supposed to fight someone like that. Then there's the Kaizen style, an ancient martial art that dates back to 100 years ago. They use no weapons at all, relying entirely on incredibly powerful striking techniques. Shimon tells him their leader is Sakan Daimaru, a young prodigy who mastered everything at a record age. Rumor has it Sakan was only 13 when he defeated his own father to take over the school. Despite Gama's earlier win, Shimon still thinks it's impossible for him to survive the first round. Gama listens to the names of the schools, thanking him for the heads up. Instead of being scared, he thinks this whole tournament is actually starting to look rewarding. Shimon decides he's going to follow him for a while to keep observing the kid. Gama finds it a bit annoying, but Shimon promises he won't get in the way of any fights. He just wants to see how things play out, and maybe find all of Gama's weaknesses. Shimon's smirk shows he's not exactly a friend, but more like a curious spectator. Gama just tells him to do whatever he wants, since he doesn't really have a choice anyway. The information collector points out that they've still got a month left before the first round even ends. Gama heads off toward the castle town to find a doctor for his arm. Suddenly, a strange whistling sound cuts through the air. Gama freezes, looking around to see where that noise is coming from. Before he can react, a massive explosion of splinters erupts from a tree right next to him. He's stunned to see a tree literally burst apart from a single projectile. Shimon realizes it was an arrow attack, and he's horrified that the Nakurazumi style is already here. This is the worst possible timing for Gama to face a long-range specialist while he's already worn out. Shimon knows that attacks from an invisible enemy can drain a person's mind just as much as their body. The arrow used is weighted with lead, giving a terrifying amount of destructive power. If one of those hits Gama directly, his insides will be completely shattered. Shimon tells him he should just run for it this time, because he's in no condition to fight Erda Nakurazumi. Gama stares into the thick forest, trying to spot his hidden attacker. But instead of running, a smirk plays on the kid's face. He figures that a forest full of trees is actually the best place for him to hide from an archer. He's going to use the terrain to his advantage to close the distance. The arrows are powerful, but they make way too much noise for a sneak attack to work. Gama's already got a rough idea of where the shooter is hiding. He's not going to let this guy get away, now that he's found a trail. Without a moment's hesitation, he dashes toward the enemy's position at full speed. Shimon is struck by the raw decisiveness and resolve he sees in someone as young as Gama. He knows he can't afford to fall behind if he wants to witness the battle firsthand. Gama estimates the distance at 145 meters, confident he can dodge a few arrows, but a sudden doubt stops him in his tracks. Far ahead, the silent figure of the archer stands waiting among the trees, motionless. Erita Nakazumi's gaze is fixed on the approaching swordsman, his presence cold and imposing. That's him. Gama realizes, his heart pounding as he finally comes face to face with the sniper. He slows down, baffled by the fact that Erita hasn't even begun to draw his bow yet. A terrifying thrust breaks the silence as a hidden arrow slams into Gama's leg from a completely different direction. The force of the blow is immense, leaving Gama reeling from the sudden, unseen assault. He crashes on the forest floor, his right leg now useless as he struggles to comprehend the attack. Furious and pained, he wonders if there's a second archer and feels betrayed by Shimon's intel. Erita watches with detached interest, satisfied that he's already managed to cripple his opponent's greatest asset, his speed. He calmly announces that Gama's defeat was inevitable from the very start of his journey through these woods. To Erita, the superiority of Nakurazumi style is absolute, and victory is just a matter of time. Even as Gama finds a moment of cover, the archer's voice cuts through the air, promising that no one can escape his aim. Gama's breath hitches as he realizes the sheer lethality of the trap he's walked into.